Hey, everybody. Dave Huckins here with the WeedCast. I'm so happy everybody's here. We got a great show lined up. One of my favorite topics, people finding sobriety with the use of cannabis or improving their lives with cannabis. We've got Quinn on the show. He's the founder of the CaliSober Recovery program. I hope I got that right. They're helping people get sober with a little bit different style than some of the stuff that you may have seen, traditional 12-step programs and things like that. I'm really excited to have him on so that he can talk about his program because this is the path for people to find an improvement in their life who may be addicted to drugs or their life is adversely affected by drugs, and a way that you can find a place to go to meetings that's less judgment free if you're currently using drugs for whatever reason, like maybe you're currently on drugs and you're trying to get off, or you have prescription medications that might be frowned upon in traditional settings, or perhaps you use cannabis to help you unwind at the end of the day. We'll get into all that and much more later. Next week, we're having Callie Sober on again, but this time it'll be with Sarah Sumter and Brianna Cross and Jesse and Crystal from the Shit Show. Um, they're going to come on. They're the Brianna and Sarah are the KC chapter of the Cali Sober program. So they're going to come on and talk about what they're doing and the support that they're getting for the program. And I'm looking forward to that. So, in the meantime, if you want to get a hold of me, you can get a hold of me. My info is scrolling down there at the bottom. You can get a hold of me at mohightight@gmail.com. Please call me at 573-818-9985. I love stalkers. I'm David Huckins on LinkedIn and Facebook. And try and find my Facebook page. It's High and Tight LLC. I'd appreciate it. If you're watching on YouTube and you haven't subscribed, I'm angry with you. Smash that, smash that like button, subscribe, and notify us so you get all my important content. It's all important and relevant. Okay, so I think we're ready to bring on our guest now, Quinn. Let's see if I can get this. All right, Quinn. Hey, what are you doing? How are you doing, brother? Welcome to the show.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Such an honor to be here.
Well, it's an honor for us to have you here, brother. You're a
Thank
big
you.
Thanks you for taking a few minutes out of your time. A big celebrity like you coming down here to slum it with the little people. I appreciate you. Thank you, sir.
I really appreciate it. I'm just I'm just a regular old guy in recovery that's trying to find space for other people to recover the way that they feel is right for them. So
That's
happy to
well
be here.
said. I love the way you said that. Find a way to recovery that's right for them. All paths to recovery don't go down the same road. However you get to recovery, that's where we want to party with you. That's where we want to see you. That's where we want to find the love. If you're in a bad place and drugs is a part of that, find the path that works for you. We don't care how you get there, just get there. Does that sound fair, Quinn?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, I'm going to give you a minute now to do your own introduction. So, you want to tell people about who you are and how they can get in touch with you and what you're doing?
Sure. So my name's Quinn. I am the founder of CaliSober Recovery program. We're a program similar to Alcoholics Anonymous. So meaning you can work this program from anywhere in the world, either at home or in a facility, whatever. It's a 12-step program that aligns with the same principles as Alcoholics Anonymous, but that it's worded differently. It's based around the behaviors rather than focusing on rigid abstinence or what substances that people are taking. It's focused more on the behavior around that action of substance abuse, because as we know, addiction and alcoholism is a symptom of a far greater issue, which is more oftentimes than not trauma. So we have trauma and we're using alcoholism or substance abuse as a way to self-soothe from the trauma. So what we do is we focus on that behavior, right? Where is that behavior coming from? That need to escape, the need to numb, all of that. Where does that originate? And let's focus on healing that rather than telling people, well, hey, if you're on medical assisted treatment, then you're not doing it right, or you're not technically sober, or telling people who have mental health medications like, oh, well, if you're taking any mood or mind altering substances, then you're not technically sober. And I've even seen people be told that they're not allowed to talk in meetings because they are on medical assisted treatment. And I think that,
Seen that.
yeah, and I think that that kind of behavior is what keeps people away from getting into recovery. So
Mm,
I created this program as just a more inclusive, non-judgmental place where people can talk openly about the way that they recover, whether they're on mental health medications, medical assisted treatment, or they smoke weed or whatever. That's up to them. What we're focused on is it rooted in recovery, is it rooted in healing, or is it rooted in escapism and dependency, right? So if people are taking a medication, what is the intention behind it? Well, if somebody's on Suboxone, to me, that is recovery. And it's a sober thought. They might not be clean because if we drug test them, then they're going to show up, positive for that, Suboxone or whatever, medical assisted treatment they're taking. But what is the intention? Well, if they're not
mm.
sticking a needle in their arm, then maybe Suboxone is the best option right now, right? So we're focused more on what is the intention behind using these substances rather than just telling everybody they have to fit into this box of, abstinence for their recovery to be valid.
Quick follow-up question to that. Just from listening to you speak and having found sobriety myself through AA, was that your first path to getting sober? Was it AA? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
So after hitting, one of my mini rock bottoms,
Mm,
I went into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous. I was abstinent for nearly a year from, everything except for nicotine and caffeine.
hmm.
Wasn't taking my mental health medications, wasn't smoking cannabis or anything like that. And I was sponsoring people. I had
Mm,
worked through the steps, and I was sponsoring people, continuing to carry the message. And as I'm sponsoring people, I'm noticing, this guy, one of my sponsees is like, well, I'm on medications for my mental health. Here's my prescription. You can talk to
right.
my doctor. And
Yep.
it's like, well, I can't tell you not to take your medications, but I've been conditioned by the rooms to, like, you know, discourage using mood or mind altering substances of any
Of any
kind.
kind. Right. Yeah. Yep.
So, you know, the outside issues clause, says, okay, well, yeah, you're doing mental health, just keep it hush hush. You know what I mean? And that
Right.
just felt so dirty to me. It just felt so wrong that we were, allowing people, well, we were not only silencing people from sharing their experience, but then that person was going up to the podium and saying, I've got all this clean time. And it's like, well, you don't have clean time because if I drug tested you right now, I know you'd show up positive for benzos. So
Right.
it was that, like, we need to give people a space to be honest. That dishonesty of saying, like, we know deep down inside, going up and saying, I'm clean and sober when we know we're taking benzos, like, somewhere inside us that doesn't feel right. If we have
Yeah.
a conscience, we that just doesn't feel right. And so telling people, and then on top of that, it's denying the newcomers the idea that they can go out and get help for their mental health, and that's okay, right? So I started to just say, this is not vibing with me. And it's not like this in all the rooms, right? This is
Sure.
how it was for me in freaking Georgia, of all places, right? Um but I knew that, at least in that situation, there was a need for people to be able to talk openly about the way that they recover, whether it was through medical assisted treatment or mental health meds or whatever, and not have to, like, omit at the bottom, like, if nothing else, like, omit the truth that they're on mental health meds,
Right.
so that they can then empower other people. Like, look, I have this condition. This is what helped me. and then that's how we help each other heal, is by being open and honest, and that way other people don't have to go through the trial and errors that we're going through, or at least there's a support group out there that says, yeah, I've been through that too, you know.
So sobriety can mean different things to different people. We've just kind of discussed that. To me, I feel like maybe you're not sober if you're using currently, but if you're whatever drug you're on and you're addicted to that drug and you're able to function and hold a job and go to work and you have a family and you're not destroying anybody else's life and you're not rolling around to the gutter and you're not robbing people to support your habit and you're just a productive member of society, I don't have a problem with that. I'd like to see you do a little bit better by yourself, but I don't have a problem with that. It's the people rolling around in the gutter and that are robbing people and resorting to horrible things, prostitution or other terrible things to support their habit that really concern me.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting topic because this term of sobriety gets thrown around so much that it's hard to really understand. There's so many definitions to what people think sobriety means. Then there's like the literal definition,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And then there's clean, right? And which is
Mm-hmm.
also a slang term that we use for people who have a negative urinalysis. And so the difference between being clean, which equals the negative urine analysis or urinalysis, either way,
Mm-hmm.
um, and somebody who is sober, to me, once I started working in the mental health field, I started to realize that sobriety is actually the clarity of that frontal cortex, right? So when we're in fight or flight mode from substance abuse, which somebody would say isn't sobriety, that prefrontal cortex is inhibited by that fight or flight mode that says nothing else matters except for how I'm going to survive through today. Somebody who's in a manic episode has the same part of their brain inhibited than if they were in survival mode from being on the streets and having to live as a drug addict.
Mm-hmm.
So somebody who's in a manic state, right, that can be treated by medications, breath work, grounding, all these different techniques, to get you back to normal. But even without the drugs that inhibit that part of the brain that's being inhibited and being taken over by this fight or flight mode, it's the same one on drugs. So if you get somebody sober, right, it means that part of the brain is no longer thinking in fight or flight mode and is instead thinking in longer terms. And so when somebody's in relapse or somebody's in a manic state, it's the same part of the brain. So all what I'm trying to get to is when you medicate somebody properly and their mental health isn't overrunning their life, they're in a sober state of mind, right? But they're on medications. So
Mm-hmm.
is that person on medications sober or are they not? Well, technically, right, the biology of the brain says that that person is in a sober mind state. And in those sober mind states, that's when we make those good decisions to get into rehab, to get help, to go and, go to therapy and, maintain long-term recovery. So for some people, recovery and being sober includes medications.
Mm-hmm.
So when we're talking about clean and dirty, we're talking about positive and negative urine urine analysis. And so being clean and sober are two different things, and you can be clean without being sober, and you can be sober without being clean.
Interesting. I would like to. We've kind of got off my regular
Sorry.
stuff. No, that's okay. We were vibing and we got into it. That was great. That was a great conversation to have. Um, I wanted to just point out that when I was finding my sobriety. And like you said, you don't usually, most people don't just do it once, right? You get sober and you fall off, and you get sober and you fall, and you just keep going and going until you find the right space. And you can never stop going. You always got to be watching, and you always got to be vigilant to make sure that you're doing the best you can. Well, in AA, you're right. Any kind of substance outside of caffeine and nicotine was usually okay. You're not sober. You failed at sobriety. And then when you go to that meeting, you have to do the soul crushing and embarrassing task of saying, "I need my white chip. We're starting over." You might have had 5 years of sobriety, or 5 days, or 5 hours, or whatever. But man, having to start over just because you had a little slip up, that's just so soul crushing. But I guess in a way, that's acknowledgement that falling off the wagon and getting back on is part of the process for most people. And you got to learn to pick yourself up by the bootstraps and then get back on again.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think it's definitely a good form of accountability. Um, I think a far more useful tool is, working through a relapse autopsy and getting people to understand like where that relapse even came from, you
For
know.
sure. Yeah, what are your
But
triggers? Yeah, for sure.
yeah,
Yeah,
but I
there's a lot of
agree.
different things. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I agree that, you know, getting up there and getting a coin, it's humiliating. And so like it definitely kept me from having to do it,
Mm-hmm.
especially early on into recovery.
Sure.
Um, but at the same time, when it does happen, I've seen it keep people from coming back because
Mm-hmm.
they're so afraid to go up and get that and get in front of a bunch of people and admit it.
Right.
So it's a double-edged sword.
It is definitely. Yeah. Okay, I want to get back on to my normal line of questioning, which is to kind of do an interview to find out more about you. And the first question I always ask all my guests is, please share with us your first cannabis usage experience. What was that like? How old were you? Who were you with? Give me all the details if you're comfortable sharing.
Yeah, that's an interesting question. I haven't been asked that in a long time. The first time I used cannabis, I mean, I had seen cannabis being used around me quite
Hmm.
often, like with my brother and my stepdad when I was, 7, 8 years old, starting
Hmm.
off. But the first time I actually used cannabis, I was 14 years old in a
Okay.
park, smoking out of an apple.
All right. Hey, that's a good way to do it. That's a good introduction.
With a couple of my best friends and their older sister.
Okay. So some of your deviant friends.
Yeah.
It's usually the most common age is 11 for most of my guests.
Oh yeah.
And yeah, I was 11, for example. And it's almost always some deviant friends or relatives that introduce the first cannabis usage. I had one guest whose experience was their first experience was with their camp counselors. That was very, very
Nice.
unusual. So yeah, right. I don't
Yeah.
know what camp they went to, but I wasn't going there. I can tell you that.
Yeah. No, that would be that'd definitely be a story to tell.
So after your first use, were you like, okay, this is my thing. I want to do this as often as possible, or how did it go from there?
Yeah, 100%. It was
Okay.
like I went the typical white boy extremity and like grew the dreads and
Oh gosh.
freaking, went vegan and freaking didn't drink alcohol or like
Right. Right.
do any of the things. I was like Rastafarian, listened to nothing but reggae and like yeah, it was bad.
That's awesome.
um yeah. Um and then about about a year after that, I had this growth on my shoulder, this cartilage growth, and I had to go in and get surgery. And so they like took a bone saw and they had to like cut this growth off my shoulder. And I got oxys prescribed
Oh,
to me at 15 years old. And once I had like taken that oxy on top of the weed, it was just like, I was like, oh, this is it. Like I thought weed was good. Like this is it.
oh
Like
shit.
this is that feeling that I've been, looking for so long. Is that
So that
aha
was your
moment, as they say.
that actually that's not that uncommon. That's a lot of for a lot of people that's their first gateway to hard drugs is through a prescription experience. I
Yeah.
wanted to just say quickly before we move on, Papa Holmes says his first experience was at the back of the bus on the way to junior high. And Caitlin Brand says her first experience wasn't deviant at all. Okay, Caitlin, we'll just take your word for it. So, yeah, uh, with deviant friends or family members is normally the next thing. So, at 15 years old, were you drinking alcohol during this time?
No, because I was Rastafarian.
Okay, all right, all right.
So I
Oh,
wasn't
so you were
drink.
into the religion actually,
Yeah,
even.
yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
okay, gotcha. Okay, wow.
I know, right? Uh,
Did you have to go through some official process to be like ordained as a member of the church or anything? Or
I didn't do any of that. I was 15 years old.
right,
I
okay,
was just like, I just started like rubbing my head and like grew this giant fro, and then
right,
it just kept rubbing it, and then dreads grew out, and I was like, I'm Rastafarian, and stopped
right,
eating meat and drinking and all that stuff, and I was like, yeah,
gotcha.
made no sense, but I was
Oh,
15 and very lost.
I am remiss. I have got to play this the disclaimer. I didn't do the disclaimer. This is fun. So just hang on. This will take about 30 seconds. Check this out, Quinn. Tell me what you think of this. Here it goes, maybe. I don't think it wants to play. Oh, hey, it didn't play. But there's your Kelly Sober website flyer. You may as well take a moment to tell people about that.
Oh heck yeah! Thank you.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's the flyer to our website. You can find our meeting schedule. You can also get the link to our private group where you can have access to the membership, where our book is also available for free as a PDF. Um, you can also get merchandise out of there, and if you need mentorship through these steps, you can
nice.
also find that there too.
Beautiful. Okay, I'll just say the disclaimer. The disclaimer is basically don't believe anything I say, don't believe anything my guest says, do your own research. We're not here to provide legal advice or anything like that. We're here for entertainment purposes, but we hope you learned something useful and we hope that this improves your life in some way. Okay, so I'm going to do the Dave commercial. So I'm looking for sponsors. I made this commercial to see if I could try and attract any sponsors to the WeedCast. So check this out, Quinn. I'll love to get your thoughts after this.
Is your life feeling empty? Lacking a certain spark? Are you suffering from a critical lack of Dave? You need more Dave in your life, and now you can get it with the Dave experience from the WeedCast. Just listen to these satisfied customers.
My life was so boring before Dave, but now I have Dave, and everything is Dave. Thanks, Dave.
That's right. With a sponsorship on the WeedCast, you can get all the Dave you can handle. Dave will talk about your brand. Dave will promote your event. Dave!
But seriously, if you have a brand or a service in the cannabis space and you want to get your message out to our amazing community, I'd love to partner with you. Sponsorship on this show is a direct line to a dedicated audience.
Oh my god, dude, I love it.
Yeah,
I love it. You could add a couple more Daves in there, and I would fucking love it even more.
it's not giving
That's
me any.
gold.
It's not getting me any sponsors, but it is getting a bunch of laughs. So people are amused by it.
Man, freaking, I don't know, do an ad or something.
Right.
Do an
That's an
ad
ad.
and freaking, yeah, run it as an ad. Put $1,000 behind it, see what happens.
Let's see. Sarah thinks my commercial is great.
Heck yeah.
She
It's
likes
Dave, actually.
it's all Dave.
That's
All
Dave.
Dave, all the time.
That was awesome.
Yeah, that's fun. I like doing that. I am remiss also. I was supposed to do a commercial for some friends of mine, bipolar farms they're trying to gather money to buy turkeys for people that are struggling to put a meal on the table this Thanksgiving. And I'll just have to do a clip later and upload it to the socials. So my bad that I didn't get that out, but I will do that for them. And also for Samantha Porter, who's a realtor in the Kansas City area, that she kind of works specifically with trying to find people that work in the cannabis space that are denied for loans because they work in the cannabis space, or people that have money to buy a house, but the bank just won't sell them a house because they work in the cannabis space. So she has a lot of unique stuff that she deals with, and she's gotten some people into homes where they failed while trying to go through traditional real estate markets. So we'll do something for her too. And now we're going to get back on track with this interview. What would you say? So we worked all the way up to about 15. You're not drinking. You started doing, what did you say? It was benzos, right? Benzos,
Oxys.
oxys. So
Yeah.
that's a powerful opiate, correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So tell us how that went. So they gave you some, you get a little prescription for a while, and you think that's great, and then what?
I took my 30-day prescription that I had. You know, I still have this scar, this massive scar right here. And I took that 30-day prescription and I was just on top of the world. I'm sure that I abused it immediately. Didn't last me 30 days, but I knew it lasted me more than, a week or two. And when I stopped taking it, I woke up to go to school the next day and it was just like I was in withdrawal and didn't know what it was. At
Oh,
15
wow.
years old, I have the aches and I'm sneezing and my eyes are watering and I feel like crap and I'm just like, what's going on? And I call up my friends and I'm just like, yeah, I'm not coming in, like I'm not coming into school. Like, I don't feel good. Well, what's going on? Throughout the day, people are calling me. I don't know, man. I just don't feel good. I'm trying to do all this, whatever else. And, oh, well, you're in withdrawal. I'm like, oh, what is that? And they're like, oh yeah, it's because of the painkillers. I'm like, oh, okay, so I need to take more painkillers to not feel like this.
Yeah.
So I take more painkillers, and
How'd you get them?
Oh, everybody at school was doing them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Was this in California?
In Salt Lake City, Utah.
Oh, in Utah. Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Drug capital of the United States, apparently.
It's crazy. My graduating class had the second highest SAT score in the nation, and was also ranked number 1 for the most ecstasy abuse. So
wow,
we were all a bunch of kids rolling balls, getting amazing grades on our SATs.
Wow.
That's crazy. But yeah, that's what our school is famous for. But yeah, I was able to obtain them easily from, people around me, and I started to gather as many as I could. I was already selling weed at the time because I'm a Rastafarian, right?
That was going to be my next question. How are you funding this venture? So
yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I was already selling at the time, and so now I found a need. Okay, well now I need these. So I started getting, whatever painkillers I could get my hands on, morphine, Loratab, Vicodin, all the other things. And I really liked the 80s until the oxys until they started putting fillers in them. And so then I was like, well, now you can't sniff them. So like, might as well, now that they're so expensive, because they started off like 50 cents a milligram, then it went all the way up to like 80 plus. So I was like, well, now that they're so expensive and now the fillers in them, like it's not even worth it anymore. Might as well just get heroin. And at 18, I did heroin for my first time.
Wow. Were you still in school at that time?
I graduated and did heroin for my first time 2 weeks after I graduated high school.
Wow.
Yeah.
I think that was when I had my first sexual encounter, about 2 weeks after I graduated high school. Not that anybody needed to know that. I just wanted to share also.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I'm glad to get to know you better.
Right on.
But, I had been
you're
doing
pouring your heart
coke.
out here, man. I felt like
No,
I
you're
had to
good.
bond with you in some kind of way.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, right on.
Yeah. Once I had started to do like, more opiates and stuff, I got serious. I cut the dreads and started dressing all nice, started dealing with mostly ecstasy and coke and painkillers. And then once, the whole Oxycontin stuff, the fillers and all that, I stopped messing with that and just went straight to just selling coke and heroin.
Were you
And
still
then,
doing the dread or the Rastafarian thing then?
no, I cut my dreads once I started to really, get into like the rave scene and
Okay.
get into like the underground parties and all that stuff. It was more like, oh, well, now I have to dress nice. And once I graduated high school, it was like no more dreads, no more none of that.
I got to be a professional drug dealer
Yeah.
now.
Yeah, exactly. Got to look presentable.
I got a higher class of clientele.
Well, I mean, yeah, having dreads just kind of screams arrest me, when you're white.
For sure. And when you're underage, it's like, I
Yeah.
have drugs on me right now.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
And I was a skateboarder, so it was just
Oh
like,
my God.
yeah.
You're just wearing a neon sign.
Yeah, exactly.
Did you get harassed by the cops a lot?
Not for like dreads or anything. Nothing that you would expect. It was like always, run-ins with the cops because I was definitely doing something illegal, like speeding, house parties, freaking brandishing a firearm, stupid stuff.
Yeah. Can we just say youthful indiscretions, maybe?
Yeah.
Drug-fueled youthful indiscretions?
Yeah,
The worst
exactly.
kind, probably. Yeah, we're not always making great decisions as kids, but let's pour some drugs and alcohol on top of that fire,
Right.
and see what
Exactly.
happens, right? So now you're a young man, and you've graduated high school, and you're a dealer. Are you working a regular job also, or is this your primary source of income?
Just primary source of income, just living out of some little apartment with a few of my roommates, kind of just, selling to them, selling to whoever I can, have a little, posse of people. And then I think I crashed my mom's car, and it was kind of like my wake up call of like, dude, you gotta figure this out.
Yeah.
And so I went and got sober in France for the first time for like 3 months. I spent in France with my brother. That's where I started to somewhat like drinking. I never really struggled with drinking. It was just like an occasional thing, like a party thing, of just like social lubricant type of thing, I guess. But I couldn't do anything else, and so I was like, well, I'll use drinking.
Right.
And then I came back and I was sober for over a year. And then I just met up with the wrong person one day and was just like, screw it. Got a case of the fuckets and got myself right back in it.
something that you just described, I want to highlight because it happened to me and it happens to a lot of people that join the military. They might be have a little party scene. And of course, they lied to the recruiter and said they don't do drugs and they're not on drugs. But, a lot of those guys are at least smoking weed. And, when you get in the military, it's a huge risk. I mean, people do it regularly. It happens all the time. It's not uncommon. I can tell you this from personal experience, but it's a huge risk. I mean, it can end your military career. There's severe consequences for just being high in the military, not even having possession of drugs. But so there's, you know, that stigma. So you get in, you can't use anymore. And now what are you going to do? Of course you're going to drink, if you're looking for some relief. Not of course, but most people do. And they actually, it's even worse in the military because there's like this, at least for men, at least anyway, there's kind of this masculine bravado, like, okay, now you're a man, let's go out and get drunk and do some man stuff. Let's get in fights and beat the women's and all the typical machismo
Jesus.
stuff that happens. Yeah, and they encourage that. In fact, when I
Hell
went
no.
to Germany, I think I was 18 years old. No,
Uh-huh.
yeah, my first enlistment, I was 18 years old. I got to Germany, and you go down to get some drinks out of the vending machine. They had Budweiser and Miller Light in the vending machine, in the soda, normally soda vending machine. So it doesn't matter what age you are at that time.
Yeah.
When you were in the military, if you were in the military, you could purchase alcohol on base and drink it. So yeah. So then you're not solving any problem. You're just
Right.
switching one substance for another, substance abuse for another.
Right.
So very common in the military. Oh, hey, and today's Veterans Day. Thank you to all of our veterans who have served, and we much appreciate you. There's too many veterans out there that are committing suicide. I think it's 21 or 22 veterans a day are committing suicide,
Mm.
mostly because they can't live with some of the things that they've done in combat. It's pretty horrific. Or things that they've done or they've witnessed or they've been through. If you're a veteran, call me, 573-818-9985. I love to talk to you. So if you're thinking bad thoughts and you think nobody loves you, you're wrong. This guy right here, I love you. Call me. I get it. I've been there. I've had suicidal thoughts and I've had a few suicide attempts, and that's not the way to go out. We are getting so many comments. This is the most comments I've ever gotten. But in the comments, they're only talking to each other. They're not talking about us. They're all saying, hi, how's it going? Oh, I'm great.
Heck
So
yeah.
if you want to jump in the comments, if you have a question for Quinn or me, throw those out there. I'll try and get them in the show. The elephant in the room, Quinn. I have been a terrible host. I only introduced you as Quinn because I have not heard you pronounce your last name, and I didn't think I would be able to say it right from the spelling. Could you pronounce that for me?
Yeah, it's Lapeyre, like
Lapeyre.
like a pear.
Okay.
Like Lapeyre.
Is it French?
It is.
It looks obviously French, yeah.
Yeah.
So cool, right on. So is that why you were in France with your brother? Do you have family there? Are there family ties?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I was born in France
Oh,
and moved to Utah when I was just a little kid with my family.
did your parents immigrate here as
Yeah.
foreigners and become citizens? Oh, wow.
Yep.
That's awesome. Wow, that's
Yeah. Well,
awesome.
my mom and my brother and I came here, and my dad stayed in France the whole time.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that's tough. My wife is a naturalized citizen. She's from the Philippines. It's a very lengthy and expensive process to go through. And when we were trying to go through it, it happened in the middle of COVID. So it took like 2 years longer than it would have normally taken because the government was pretty much shut down for most of it.
Yeah. No, luckily my mom got citizenship freaking 20 years ago. So
Nice.
and I was under 18, so I got it.
Nice. Let's see. Let's get back into this. So you come back and now you've fallen in, and we talked about that before too. You've fallen off the wagon again. And how old were you at this time? Early 20s, mid 20s?
Yeah, early 20s.
So, what's your plan? So, you're coming back from France, and you fell in with the wrong crowd. And are you gonna start dealing drugs again, or are you gonna try and get a job? What's Quinn's life like at this time?
Um, let's see. So get back from France, fall into the wrong crowd again. I was living in a house with a bunch of roommates, and I was selling weed at the time. Like I went back to selling weed, and I was working a job and kind of just sticking to the plant medicines and stuff, and was really vibing on that for a while, um, and then yeah, just started to spiral. I lost that house. I met like this girl who was very narcissistic, manipulative, physically, verbally abusive. Would beat me, and we were
Mm,
like on drugs together,
shit,
yeah,
toxic.
it was the worst relationship of my life,
Those
and
relationships are easy to get into when you're already on subset, because a lot of times you are that person. Either you're that person or the person you're with is that person. It seems
yeah,
like that's quite often the role that people play when they're in personal relationships and addicted to hard drugs.
right, yeah. Yeah, so it was just a roller coaster of, anger and shame and substance
Yeah,
abuse and all
yeah.
that. And my mom ended up leaving Salt Lake to go to Georgia and got a job with the government out there
Mm.
as a detective, or as a private detective for the federal defender's office. My mom was always connected with the legal side of Salt Lake City. So all the lawyers and judges and prosecutors, like they all knew my mom. So they were very lenient with me for a long time.
Oh shit, and that's not
Yeah,
helping you at all.
no, it wasn't.
Right.
It was not. Um, but yeah, I found myself, at my mom's house selling dope out of her house. She
Oh,
was living in Georgia, and then woke up one morning with this crazy pain in my groin. I was just like, I don't know what's going on, but I'm like puking. I'm just like pissing blood. And I'm like, okay, I
mm,
got to go to the hospital.
yeah.
So I go to the hospital and I tell them, what's going on. They're like, okay, let's operate, whatever else. I tell them I'm a, intravenous drug user, everything else. And they put me under and operate, and they hit me with adrenaline to wake me back up. And I wake back up and all these people are in my room, and I'm just like, everybody get out. Everybody get out. Y'all are stressing me out. I just got really anxious, and it all just reacted really badly in my system, and I blew my coronary artery. Um, Went into cardiac arrest,
Oof.
and they were like, this kid's gone. He's dead. So they
Oh
put me
no.
on life support. Put a balloon pump through my femoral artery. They had me on, the respirator. I was intubated, and all the rest. And then they hit me with adrenaline, and then they um, put me in a coma, and I woke up from that coma, um, and I was still intubated, and I had all my family around me now, and I didn't know what the hell was going on, so I like started trying to pull the tubes out of my
Oh
mouth,
right, yeah.
and so they put me back under, and they woke me up again the next day after taking all the tubes out and stuff, and it was actually 14 years ago today, on 11/11/11, that they woke me up from that coma. And I woke up and I was like, what the hell is going on? And they were like, my sister's like, imagine your happy place. And I was like, turtles are my happy place, because I was so fucked up. um, and I was like, what's going on? And they're like, well, they told us to come say goodbye to you because you weren't going to make it. And I was like, what are you talking about? Like I came in for surgery, like what's going on? And so
Yeah.
they explained to me what happened. I didn't even remember waking up after surgery. So the doctor comes in and tells me, you've done so much damage to your heart.
Oh,
because you severed your artery, and basically you have the heart of like a 90-year-old man, and you're
oh
not gonna
no.
live to see your next birthday. And
Wow.
and I was just like, oh wow, okay, what do I do? I have like less than 6 months to live, like, um, so I went and stayed with
So,
my mom in
so,
Georgia.
I'm sure you brought this up. So the doctor is probably saying that doesn't matter if you quit doing drugs or you start eating healthy and you get in the gym and you work out 10 hours a day. It's your body is degraded to such a point that you're not going to recover. Was that the
Yeah, they told me I can't do anything strenuous. I
okay?
can't, I can't lift anything. I can't do anything that's gonna make my blood pressure go up, because that could sever the stent that they put in my heart to keep it
Yeah.
together.
Ugh.
So
Hmm.
yeah, they're like, you can't do anything. You can't even force a shit, is literally what they told me.
Oh wow. Oh my God. So you're just trying to deal with this and you're expecting to pass away after 6 months, and then
Yeah.
so what happens?
So my mom is, telling me, she's there in the hospital. She's like, you got to come back to Georgia with me. You've only got, you only have a few months to live. Like, come spend it with your family,
Hmm.
and I was just like, okay, whatever. Um,
Thank God you had a
so
good family to support you though through that.
yeah, my family's always been supportive. They just weren't there in the beginning, you know,
Mhm.
like, but so yeah, so I agreed to go spend time with my mom in Georgia, and then I was dating a girl at the time, and after a couple months I was like, well, I'm not gonna go out like this, just sitting in Georgia with no friends and nothing to do, and my girlfriend's back in Utah. Like, I'm gonna go back to Utah and like go out with a bang, fuck this. So I
Mhm.
go back to Utah, and I go right back to doing the same thing, selling
Oh,
dope, freaking, same old, same old.
right. Yeah.
And that lasted probably another year or two before I told my mom, okay, like, obviously I'm not dying. So I've just about had enough here in Utah. Everybody's, I hate everybody. I hate everything. Let me try and start something new out there. Went to Georgia, was sober for like a year and some change again, and then just started picking up, Norcos, like little Lortab or Vicodin or whatever here and there, until I found, stronger pills, and then I found heroin, and then my brother-in-law uh, killed himself, and I kind of was just like, yeah, fuck it,
It was a
whatever.
suicide.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
that's too bad.
yeah. He was a ranger, and he killed himself on base.
Jesus.
And
Fort Benning.
so, yep.
Okay. Yeah, I was stationed at Fort Stewart. So.
Mm. Yeah, I used to live like 20 minutes away from Fort Benning.
Oh wow, we may have crossed paths in our distant paths.
Heck yeah, that's wild,
Awesome. Small world.
right?
Yeah.
But yeah, so I kind of used that as my, like, okay, well, screw it. Everything else is going to shambles. Might as well start using, heroin again. And then,
And that's how the
um,
drug addict mind works, people. If you're not, that's just how it works. It's so easy to talk yourself into using again. Just a weak moment. When you're just down or depressed or something, and then you, like you said, you run into the wrong person, and then boom, you're back in it again. So.
yeah, it's interesting that you say that, because I have pinpointed for me what that is. Biologically, what's happening is I'm going through a really hard time, and I'm looking for some relief. And that thing that then my theory is behind this word that we called the disease. This term we call the disease when we're relating to substance abuse, is the idea that my brain is going to immediately go to the solution is substances when I'm in
Mhm.
this position, right?
Hmm.
And I feel like our brain can be trained to like not do that, because for the first time, you
Sure.
know, after a couple years of recovery, I remember the first time I got into a really tough situation, and my first thought wasn't like, "Fuck it, let's go get high," and I was like, "Oh shit." My
Yay.
first thought wasn't, "Let's go get high." Like I might actually be like getting on top of this thing. So I like that you pointed that out, because for me it was really about pinpointing like, well, what's happening is my brain is looking for some kind of relief. I have mental health conditions, so my brain doesn't produce dopamine like other people do. I've also been conditioned to believe that the only way to soothe myself is through substances or through some kind of external force that's going to alter the way that I feel. And so my brain, after conditioning and using substances for so long in this exact scenario, is automatically going to go back to, oh, well, that's what we did last time. Right. And then I get that dopamine that reinforces the behavior that says, I like this feeling, continue this behavior.
There have been so many. I've never seen so many comments roll in. I'm having a hard time keeping up with all the comments. Here's a really good one from Stephanie Green. Do you know Stephanie?
Yeah.
Okay, so Stephanie says that Quinn and the CaliSober Recovery crew changed my life this year. I am so proud of who he has become and where he is headed. I enjoy watching his interviews, especially on the WeedCast. That dude is amazing. And learning more about his firsthand experiences. I didn't know there were so many of us surviving in recovery. I'm so proud to call myself Cali Sober and stand up with this group. Community, when you're trying to get sober, can really make a huge difference. So thank you for your testimonial and telling people how this group has made a big difference in your life. And we're getting ready. We've gone almost to a whole hour, and I have barely scratched the surface of the stuff I wanted to ask you about your life, interviewing you. But I also want to talk about the Cali Sober Recovery Program. We got into that a little bit at the beginning.
Thanks, Stephanie, by the way.
Yeah, thank you so much, Stephanie. Also, I don't see the comment anymore, but Sarah Sumter is getting to know you today too. She said, "Wow, I didn't know all that stuff about Quinn." So,
Thanks, Sarah.
yeah, people are getting to know you. People are getting to know me a little bit. I had my first sexual experience just after graduation when I was 18. Not that that's relevant in any way to what we're talking about. So I got a little thing I do here. We're coming up on 1 hour. Oh crud, I clicked the wrong thing. Come here. Let's see, we're coming up on to 1 hour. So this is what I like to call the pants optional part of the show. This is not gonna work. Come on. There we go. Oh, that's more comfortable. Oh, God. So now we can just riff it. We can talk about whatever. I like to start off with a joke. If you got a joke on deck that you'd like to share with everybody, I'm going to put you on the spot right now, Quinn.
Okay. Let me see if hopefully I tell it right.
Okay.
Okay. So there's a grandfather and a grandson, and they're sitting on this porch, and the grandson looks at the grandfather and he says, "Grandfather, I don't understand dark humor." And dang it. No, I lost it.
No, that's okay. I'll tell my joke. It'll give you a second to recover. We'll give you a do-over. So here's my joke. And I love telling jokes in this kind of a format. Like, you don't even know it's a joke. I'm just telling you a story about something that happened to me in my life, right? So I like to set it up. Like, for example, I was working out on base today on Fort Leavenworth at the Gruber Fitness Center. And afterwards, after my workout, I went to the commissary, which is the grocery store for soldiers. And I had a bunch of donuts. I was buying these donuts to treat myself after my workout. And this lady saw me buying these donuts and she said, oh my gosh, that is so unhealthy. I hope you're not eating those donuts for breakfast. And I said, my grandma lived to be 101 years old. And the lady looked at me and she said, did she eat donuts every day? And I said, no, she minded her own damn business.
Heck yeah, that's really good. I like that. Heck yeah, that was good.
That's good. Did you
Heck
did you
yeah.
want a second shot at telling your joke, or are
No.
you done? You're done? Okay.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right. That's kind of almost like trying to get your sobriety chip all over again, right? That was
I couldn't even remember what the joke was. I remember the ending, but I forget the middle part. So whatever.
I like jokes where the punchline is all, you didn't even need the setup, but the punchline is so good you don't even need the rest of the joke.
Yeah. I need to get some. I need to get some of those in my repertoire.
Like, here's the punchline to one joke that I like. Wrecked him, it nearly killed him. Bump bump. You don't even need to know the rest of the joke. That was just a joke in itself. Oh, hey, look at this. Missy Melissa says Quinn is the best. He helped save my life, and so many more, and inspiration. So
That's really. Thank you, Missy. I appreciate you. That's really kind of you.
Thank you, Quinn. So I want to spend some of this time that we have left. I think we've gotten up to the meat and potatoes, right? You thought you were going to die. You hung on for a few more years. Sounds like maybe you're getting at the end of your rope. How old are you at this time?
27, 28.
Oh my God, you have had a lifetime of experiences by the time you're 27. But that's, people that are on those hard drugs, a lot of times they live fast and free until they are wind up dead, they find recovery, or they're in prison.
Yeah.
So
that's where I was headed.
So kind of walk us through between that point and what happened when you picked up when you started doing the CaliSober thing.
Okay, so I 27, 28 years old, I was actually maintaining a relationship. I was in college. I had a cell phone store, I had a car and a motorcycle, wow. And I was actually doing really well because this was like the stint in like the end of like the year and some change that I had of recovery. And the manager that I had hired to manage the cell phone store, I found out he was stealing from me. I was also getting more into like the harder drugs. My brother-in-law had just killed himself. Then I was doing, kind of whatever I could with the cell phone store, going to college at the same time, managing all these things. Then I lose my girlfriend. Then I just like hit the substances hard after losing the store, lost my bike, like gave it to my dealer. Same with my car, gave it to my dealer for dope. And then sold off all of my stuff. And I was basically just like, I was getting ready to end it.
Sounds like you gave up at that point.
Yeah.
Because before you were able to support your habit, you wanted to. Now it sounds like, you're just giving up. It sounds like you're giving away your stuff. It seems like almost like you're committing suicide, like the signs of someone committing suicide, the warning signs, taking care of your final needs, giving away your stuff, depression, classic signs. Okay.
Yeah, that's where I was at. And then my brother, who was living in St. Martin, which is a French-owned country in the Caribbean, he's like, well, why don't you come and stay with me? Come start over a new life on this island, beautiful island and blah, blah. And he like sold me this dream. And I was like, okay, sure. Let's try it out. Let's go live on an island for a bit. So I moved to the Caribbean islands for a year. 2 weeks into getting there, I found coke And
Yeah.
then that same dealer also had heroin. So basically just was doing the same shit I was doing in the United States, just on an island where it's more expensive now, you know. Stayed there, did that for a year. Convinced my mom to let me come back to the United States, where I found a job in Atlanta. Started using because I got sober to come back, and
Hmm.
then was on Suboxone. Then started using in Atlanta basically immediately, and I think I was probably 30 years old by this time. And in Atlanta, it just plummeted. My life just plummeted. Went to
It's hard to imagine your life plummeting.
Oh, I know, right? You'd think that you'd
It
think it
sounds like
was
it's been a
already.
horrible downward spiral for years, and then this is where my life got terrible. What?
Yes, I love that.
Wow. Wow.
Yeah, you'd think I was talking about the rock bottom this whole time.
Right. Yeah. Wow. Jeez. What's next?
Um, yeah, well, what's next is me selling my body for dope, me pulling guns on people, guns getting pulled on me, home invasions, robberies, just, prostitution, just the worst of the worst of what you could think of happening in Atlanta, you
Hmm.
know?
Hmm.
And basically living from trap house to trap house, getting in fights, getting my nose broken, running over people, pulling guns, robbing houses. Um, Freaking had this whole scheme going with AC units, like stealing AC units, just like stupid stuff.
It sounds like at this point, the drugs are running your life. You know
Oh
what I
yeah,
mean? It's
very much
just,
so.
I've, at a certain point, it just becomes that the drugs are the most important thing in your life. And usually that happens right before you hit rock bottom, maybe again. But your friends, eating, showering, a job, having a house to live in, all the stuff that normal people do in their day-to-day stuff, that all becomes secondary.
Yep,
Getting high becomes the most important thing. So,
100%. Yeah, I agree. That's yeah, that at that point, yeah, it took over. Um, Nothing else mattered. My looks, my what I had, my relationships, none of that.
yep, yep.
Um, Basically ended up at this house um, where it was just me and this other dude who were using, and his mom was just like bedridden, basically just living
Yep.
in this trap house of a freaking condo. And I'm trying to shoot up, and all my veins are gone and everything, and struggling to do so for like 45 minutes. Finally, I get it to register, and then push back and it's missing, and I'm
Of
just at the
course.
end of my rope. I'm already in withdrawal, and I just lose my mind. I just had a mental breakdown, throw it against the wall. I fucking start screaming. I like get on my knees and I'm crying, and I'm like, God, if you're out there, like if anybody's listening, like take my life or give me strength. I can't do this anymore. And that freaking needle was on the ground and it was all bent and stuff. And I picked it up and squirted it in my mouth, and I cuddled up next to my dog, and I just fell asleep. And I woke up the next morning and I look around my room, and there's blood everywhere, and my dog hadn't eaten in days.
Oh,
And freaking, it's the carpet's nasty, my clothes are nasty, I look like shit, my freaking clothes are shitty, like everything's just like, dude, I had a moment of clarity, and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? What is happening? This can't be it for me. This can't be it for me.
right.
So I hit up my mom and said, hey, I need help. She said, yeah, we've known for a while, you need professional help.
Yeah.
And I was
Yeah.
like, okay, I'll take the professional help. So for once in my life, I was like, okay, I'll go to rehab or I'll go to sober living or whatever. So I go in, I go to my sister's house, I detox, get into sober living. That's where I start doing, Alcoholics Anonymous, doing all that.
Mm-hmm.
I was abstinent for nearly a year, worked through the steps, and then I was working through those steps, and I was clean, but I wasn't sober. And this is where it became very apparent to me. I was clean because I had no, whatever in my system, but my thinking was not of sober thought, right? Instead of using the money that I was given to by my mom to go and pay my motorcycle license and my insurance and the registration and all these things. No, I thought instead that I need more dopamine than that. And I need to take this girl out on dates. Like, if the cops get behind me, I'll just run. Well, running from the cops happened a bunch of times until finally this day it caught up to me. I was going 123 or something, or 127 in a
Was your
65.
girlfriend with you?
No,
Oh, thank goodness.
I left a AA meeting on my motorcycle. I was trying to get home
Okay.
because it was cold, and going 123, just past this cop, and I was like, "Oh, he's not gonna chase me." Like get to the next light, and I hear the sirens, in my helmet. I look back, and he's like right behind me. So I lead them on a high-speed chase for 15 minutes. Finally end up crashing my bike, go to jail, get out of jail, and I lost my place at Sober Living. So I bunked with a dude that I met in jail, and within 3 days of getting out of jail, I was back to the streets.
God.
Yeah. So went back out for another like 9 months or a year or something like that. And at that point, was living at an apartment that was just a bunch of drug addicts using together, and we went to go and pick up dope from one of my roommates guys, and that dealer had just re-upped. We go up to the hotel, I sit down in the chair, they're doing their business in front of the dresser drawer, and I look over, and his gun is sitting right there on the nightstand. And my first reaction was to grab the gun, and I point it at the dealer's head, and I'm like, I'm just gonna kill him and take all the dope. And I look over at my roommate, and I'm like, I'm gonna kill him too. And then I was like, okay, but the dealer's girlfriend just walked downstairs to make a play. So if you do this now, then she's going to know it was me. So I'm going to wait for her to come back. And when she comes back, I'm going to kill all three of them.
Oh, Jesus,
and so I'm sitting here waiting for her to come back. And, I'm thinking about like, okay, what about the cameras when we came in? What about the car? Am I going to take the car? Am I going to leave the car? Are there going to be cameras? Like, do I need to mask myself? Like, do I need to change clothes? Like, all these things are going through my head. And I'm just like, dude, what the fuck are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, you're going to end up in prison. And like, that's just going to be it. And I was more afraid of going to prison than I was of dying. Like, I just didn't want to be locked up.
Wow,
and I was like, okay. So I put the gun back, and we leave, and I get to the apartment that we were at, and my sister's there waiting for me, and she sees me, and she sees I look like shit, and she's like, get your ass in the car. And I was like, no, I'm not doing that. Like, no. Like, I still want to get high for a little bit, She's like, this is really what you want. And I was just like, let's fucking go. Let's go. Let's get out of here. And we packed my stuff, and I headed up to Columbus, Georgia.
It sounds like, can I stop you right there? It sounds like to me it sounds like your sister was having a tough love moment with you right there. It sounds like maybe she was like, either get in the car or I'm done.
Well, yeah, my sister is always, she was an adult at freaking 14 years old.
Mm-hmm.
She was always the very logical minded Taurus of the family. So just very logical minded, um, and she knew she's my sister is like my soulmate. And like some people think that that's weird, they think that soulmates have to have like some like romantic relationship or something, but like my sister and I have been best friends since she was born.
Okay.
It's almost like twins. Like we have that connection of like we just know just by being in the
Okay.
presence of each other.
I see.
So my sister's never been done with me. She's just had to have times where she loved me from a distance. You know what I mean?
Sure.
And this was just one of those times where she was like, dude, I know this isn't what you want, so just get your ass in the car. So, um, but yeah, I'm very fortunate for that. I got back to Columbus, Georgia, and uh, she just started to have this style of sympathy and compassion for me that I didn't feel like I had from anyone else. Instead of telling me like stop doing this and stop doing that and whatever else, she was asking questions like, why do you continue to do this? What are you getting from it? Like, what is, you know is this what you want? And instead of trying to fix me, she was trying to understand why I felt like I was broken. And she started to ask really important questions. She started to show me that, I was able to use other things and not ruin my life. She's
Oh,
like,
so
why
this
are you doing this stuff?
is this kind of like your first moment where you're realizing that maybe you can maybe there's another way outside of the traditional path of AA, where if you're using anything, you failed at sobriety. Is this kind of your first inkling at something like that?
No, I mean, I had that inkling before, like when I was sponsoring people and when I
Okay. Oh,
was,
that's right. Yeah, we
doing
talked
that
about
kind of
that. Yeah.
stuff. Yeah. I never struggled with cannabis or alcohol. Even throughout the toughest times of my addiction, I never used alcohol as like a tool to escape or numb or anything. And so to me, it was always very curious that I was, just a drug addict. I wasn't an alcoholic. And when one of my sponsors had like told me, like, you have to identify as an alcoholic, and I was like, I've never struggled with alcoholism. They're like, it doesn't matter, you have the disease of alcoholism. And I was like, and I was like, well, that doesn't vibe with me. You know what I mean? Like, I'm not going to
Yeah.
sit here and call you a crackhead even if you've never smoked crack before. You know what I
Sure.
mean? So,
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
um, but yeah, so like I knew that there was, and I was on Suboxone. I did a Suboxone taper, and I was like, well, people in recovery, if you go to a mental health center, if you go to a rehab, like you do, you take medications and people count that as sober time, if they're in rehab. And so I was like, okay, well, there's not enough clarity. Some people say it's sober time, some people say it's clean time, some people count this, some people don't. Like,
Right.
there's just and so I was like, well, what does it mean to me? You
Yeah.
know?
There you go.
Um and so I started to look into like Bill Wilson's spiritual awakening, because that was really fascinating to me, because even after a year of recovery, I still wanted to get high. I was still waiting for that spiritual awakening to hit me. I literally
Hmm.
thought that it was going to be as obvious as like the clouds freaking coming together and Mufasa coming out and being like, Quinn, like, you're
Right.
cured now, like
Right.
I was waiting for that moment and it never happened.
Sure.
And so I was like, what is this spiritual awakening? And come to find out, Bill Wilson attributed it to his psychedelic experience. And during
Mm.
that psychedelic experience, he had a profound shift in perception and attitude and behavior. And so I was like, okay, so my spiritual awakening is going to require me to have a profound shift in attitude, perception, and behavior. How am I going to do that? And on top of that, like I can use plant medicines as a tool, if I need to. And because Bill Wilson did it, and because I had access to him at the time, and because I, figured I can do this as opposed to like doing an ayahuasca ceremony in Mexico or doing, some out of the country stuff that I can't afford. Like, let's see what this, what the hype is all about, this healing that I hear everybody's getting from this, these experiences that even though I tried 100 times in the past, I didn't get. So I started to look deep into like the ceremonies, how they're being done. And I set my intentions, I journaled, I cleared my space, and I did a little ceremony with 9 grams of mushrooms around figuring out
Whoa!
why
Neurodose.
I, yeah, figuring out why I can't get out of this disease. I didn't believe in this disease. I didn't believe that, addiction was a disease, or I believed that I didn't understand it well enough to know what that meant, because
Mhm.
there's like so
Okay.
many, diseases can mean so many things, and a lot of diseases are curable. So it's like,
Right.
okay, well, if it's a disease, then shouldn't I be able to cure my addiction of disease? And it makes sense. Dis-ease, right? If something's in dis-ease, it's in disorder, so it can be put back in order, right? And biologically, that's what needed to happen for me, is that dis-ease needed to be realigned. That idea that I had conditioned myself to believe that substance abuse was the only answer, and those neurological passages that I formed around that being the answer, right, that created that disease, the thing that we call the disease, that's what I needed to fix. And that was going to require that profound shift in perception, behavior, and attitude. And so I did that ceremony with the intention of figuring it out. That's the one thing that I did different from all the times that I used mushrooms and LSD and ecstasy and everything else in the past. The thing I did different this time was my intention.
Can I stop you for just a second? Because
Absolutely.
this is resonating with me just a little bit. When you finally figured out that psilocybin is a sacred substance not to be toyed with, did you feel slightly ashamed for having used it recreationally and kind of haphazardly in the past?
That's funny that you say that. I didn't initially, but the more that I did ceremonies, the more that I learned about plant medicines and the rituals and all of the belief system behind it, then I started to understand why my body and my soul was rejecting all of these synthetic things that I was trying to feed it. It was like the plant medicines, and I know that sounds absolutely psychotic, like I'm some crazy person talking, but literally the plant medicines told me you can't do those. Like, you can't do that.
So it sounds like your ceremony was a big hit for you. A lot of times, when I'm lost and I'm struggling and I don't see a path forward, I don't do a hero dose, but I with the same thing as you, set and setting, and you go into it with your mental state being like, this is a problem that I have, and I need a solution for that, and I'm open to receiving information that can help benefit me and get me out of this situation. And usually on the other end of it, I almost always feel like, this is stupid. The answer was right in front of me the whole time. It was punching me in the face. And now I just needed something to just give me a little bit of clarity. It's so obvious. Is
Right.
that similar for you?
Absolutely.
Ah,
Yeah,
hmm.
I mean, I've definitely felt that way. Um and it's happened a couple times where it's like I feel like I know the answer, but I
Mm.
need confirmation from like my higher self.
Well, yeah,
But yeah, that experience alone, like, I knew that I wanted to get sober. Nobody wants to be a drug addict, right? We all want to get sober, but
right.
sometimes that survival instinct just takes over, and we find ourselves with a freaking pipe in our hand or a bottle in our hand or something like that, and it's like, oh, I didn't even mean to, like, it just happened. But I knew that, I wanted to try and figure it out. And when I did that ceremony, it was the spiritual awakening I feel that Bill Wilson was talking about. I did that dose, and I was building this rock sculpture in my sister's yard. And so I was like connected to nature. I had my feet on the grass. I had this beautiful tree. It was the middle of summer. It was beautiful out, and, blue skies and a lot of green. And I'm doing these rock sculptures, and I lay down on the grass and I look up at the sky, and I close my eyes, and now I'm like going down this path in a forest, and I feel somebody holding my hand, and I look down, and it's my younger self. And my younger self and I are walking through this forest, and we get to a lake, and it's starting to be sunset. We sit down on this lake, and this movie screen shows up above the lake, and it's like flashing my life before my eyes, like the moving to America, the bullying, the abandonment, the sexual abuse, you know the changing of the schools all the time, like all of these things. And then sprinkled in were these like moments of me laughing with my brother and having a good time with my sister and like hugging my mom, and like these moments that I wished would never end. And the video ends, and it like kind of retracts like one of those old 70s TVs. And I look down at my younger self, and I ask him, what do we do now? And he said, you have to make a decision. And I said, okay, what's the decision? And he said, you have to choose if you want to live or die. And I thought about all of those experiences, the abuse, the abandonment and bullying and all the things, and the ODs and all those really low points in my life. And then I remembered the times of happiness where I didn't want those moments to end. And I looked at my inner child and I said, it's not that I want to die, it's that I want to be happy, and I don't know how to be happy anymore. And he said, I can give you all the happiness that you seek if you make this commitment to me. And I said, what's the commitment? And he said, as long as you can, as long as you no longer use substances to numb or to escape from yourself, then I will give you all the happiness that you're looking for. And I was like, dude, I'm in a different dimension right now on 9 grams of mushrooms talking to myself. So like, what are you talking about? And he was like, did you come here to heal, or did you come here to escape? And I said, I came here to heal. And he said, as long as your intentions are rooted in healing and, recovery and not escapism or dependency, then, then your commitment is good with me. And it clicked. It was like, okay, so if I get into an accident and I break my legs, like I'm not jeopardizing my sobriety because I said yes to the morphine. If I have cancer and I say yes to the freaking medications, like I'm not a piece of shit because I opted into the medication, right? Like just because I freaking, use Adderall for ADHD or something doesn't mean that that my recovery is worthless. So I started to get this thinking of just like, recovery is far different than, just being dependent on being clean or being, having a negative or a positive urine analysis. It's based around your intention. Are you trying to get sober? Are you trying to get to a better form of life? And to me, that's mental health meds, that's harm reduction. If you freaking had a 6-pack yesterday and you only had a 4, and only drank 4 today, like to me that is progress, and that should be celebrated.
Celebrate
And
that. Yeah.
absolutely. So it just kind of was like, yeah, this is it. And all of these other naysayers and people who aren't acknowledging that like psychedelics and plant medicines are having a huge impact on people in recovery, and they don't want to acknowledge that like this program, although I think is an amazing program, needs updating. you know the terminology and all of that stuff is just outdated. And I said, Bill Wilson would have wanted this. This is the program Bill Wilson wanted. Bill Wilson never, the literature, Alcoholics Anonymous literature, never once stated no mood or mind altering substances or you're not sober. It never said that. It's the people in the rooms that have this freaking superiority complex of like, oh, well, I did it this way. I suffered this much, so you should have to suffer this much for your recovery to be valid. It's like, no. There's the times have changed. There's easier, softer ways. There's ways of encouraging people in positive ways instead of shaming them into thinking that they're broken if they need help for their mental health, or if they need help taking steps with medical assisted treatment, or if they're using harm reduction tools such as cannabis in their recovery so that they don't stick a needle in their arm or they don't hit the freaking bottle. Like, that's what we need.
I just want to say we're coming up. I know you have a hard stop in about 4 minutes, 3 minutes.
Oh, yeah.
So I want to make sure you get out of here on time. You got some important stuff to do. But I think this is a great place to wind this up. I mean, I had a lot more stuff I wanted to talk about, but I think we covered your journey from, your first cannabis use all the way up until, you founded or got the idea to do something different outside of traditional AA.
Yeah.
So I think that's a great, and plus in the beginning, we talked about kind of what CaliSober is. So I think this is a great place to stop. I wanted to make a suggestion to you though, when you were talking about having your spiritual journey with your younger self and your younger self expressed to you, you have to make a decision here. Your choice is, do you want to live or do you want to die? I would suggest to you that when you came out on the other side of that, you didn't die physically, but you did kill your old self. You came out of that as a new person on the other side with a focused mission. I felt like I've done that before too. Like I had that moment, like, I don't want to be this anymore. I want to be either dead or done with this, and I felt like at that moment, the old Dave, I kind of shed that away. That part of me did die, and I became kind of an open slate where I could become what I wanted to become. A butterfly metamorphosizing into something more beautiful.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I agree. I definitely agree. And that was something that I took into consideration and actually symbolically put that life to rest, where I, found an old needle in one of my old garments of clothing and freaking had my whole life flash before my eyes after having a few months of recovery. And it was very symbolic, and I put it to rest, and I was like, we're not good for each other anymore. I don't want to see you again. I don't love you anymore. Like, times were good, but this is it. Goodbye. And I flushed it and I cried and I did the whole breakup with it and was like, this is me putting that life to rest.
So Stephanie and I both would like to thank you for coming on the show and being so candid and sharing your story. I'm sure this is going to help a lot of people. It's been an amazing interview. It didn't go at all the way I planned it, but sometimes the best interviews just go that way. You kind of get riffing with somebody and you get vibing and you just go with it. So that worked out great. I think we got a lot more stuff we could talk about in the future. But we'll cover a lot of this stuff next week when Sarah Sumter and Brianna Cross are our guests. We'll talk about the Kansas City. Yeah, we'll talk about this. I'm saying the WeedCast is sponsoring the CaliSober month this month.
Heck yeah.
This month are from the CaliSober program. So that's awesome. We got 1 minute left. If you have, would you like to give a testimonial about how this has been one of the most amazing things that's ever happened in your life, being on the WeedCast? Or would you like to warn people how horrible this has been and to never do it? However you feel like expressing yourself, about the WeedCast. This is your time to shine, brother.
Hey, I appreciate it. Yeah, I definitely appreciate being here today. David had really great questions. And I like the way that you continued the conversation with more questions that weren't just like surface level questions. They were real thought out. So I appreciate that because I've been on so many podcasts and a lot of them ask the same questions. So I remember being like, "Ooh, I like that. That was a great question." So thank you so much for that. And if you're looking to, you know, do some kind of sponsorship, go check out the ad because the ad was just
You need more Dave in your life, right?
that was amazing.
All right, Quinn, I'd love to talk to you for another hour or 2 hours. Maybe we'll just have to do this again. Since you've been on the
Definitely.
show, I like to invite my alumni back as a co-host for another episode. So
Yeah,
definitely
that'd
you're
be
going to
dope.
come back on another episode in the future. We'll have you back at least for that. So I'm going to let you go. I'm running my mouth. I'm going to take up too much of your time. I know you got important stuff to do. Thanks so much to all of our audience members for tuning in tonight. The participation has been amazing. Thanks so much to Quinn. If you're trying to find a path to sobriety, check out the CaliSober Recovery program, right?
Heck
Thanks so
yeah.
much, everybody. Take care.
Thank you. Appreciate you,
Now,
man.
yeah, now the long, awkward pause after I click the button to end.